First off, President Barack Obama has had the fortune to appoint 2 nominees to the Supreme Court. His second pick, a second woman, has been undergoing nomination hearings all week. What have we learned about former Harvard Dean of the Law School, Elena Kagan? What have we learned about her questioners? More than anything, there's been talk about the process. In a moment, David Korn, the Washington bureau chief for MotherJones, will join us. First, this from Lindsey Graham.
Let's try to go back in time and say you're watching these hearings and you were critical of the way the Senate conducted these hearings. Are we improving or going backwards? And are you doing your part?
I think that you've been exercising your constitutional responsibilities extremely well.
So it's all those other guys that suck, not us, right? His words, not mine, David. To quote the senator there, have the hearings sucked?
Well, I think they've been rather predictable. These things have long ago turned into kabuki theater when anything interesting a Supreme Court nominee might have to say, by and large, they don't say. Good questions put to them are usually met with the response, well, that could come before the court. And I'm not going to talk about it. Dianne Feinstein, the Democratic senator from California, yesterday asked some pretty strong questions about terrorism issues and the power of the executive and the power of the president to detain virtually forever people suspected of being part of terrorist outfits like Al-Qaeda. And it's a vexing legal issue that the Obama administration is having trouble with, and I think it poses some, it's a hard question even for liberals to contend with. And Elena Kagan, who is a smart person, I'd like to hear what she has to say on this important subject, said, well, I may have to rule on that, and as you know, I'm not going to say anything about a case I may have to rule on. So, poof, it kind of disappeared. What we have seen, more on the, either the human interest level or the political level, we've seen that she can sit for 8 hours with a very placid expression on her face, which I think is the talent. Not everyone can do that.
Well, let's play one of those not terribly productive exchanges, also with the senator from California, Dianne Feinstein, asking about recent gun decisions and sharing at least her personal perspective. We didn't get Kagan's.
I come at the subject of guns probably differently than most of my colleagues. I think I've seen too much. I wrote the assault weapons legislation. I found the body of Harvey Milk. I became mayor as a product of assassination. I've watched as innocent after innocent has been killed, the latest of which in my state is 2 weeks ago, a 6-year-old in a Spider-Man costume eating an ice cream bar in the kitchen was killed by a bullet coming through the room. I can show you in Los Angeles where a woman ironing killed the same way. A youngster playing the piano killed the same way, bullet right through the walls, is paraplegic today.
So that was one of the types of exchanges you're talking about, David. Not much from Kagan, a lot from Feinstein.
Yeah, well, I think if you clocked the minutes, you'd find the senators speaking more than she does, which is the right, political way for her to handle this. She wants to say as little as possible, make as few mistakes as possible. I mean, it's kind of, as many of the senators have noted, it's a little bit different this time because a few years ago, Elena Kagan did write a famous article in which she blasted Supreme Court nomination hearings for being vapid with, the senators asking questions and the nominees not answering them. And here she was doing exactly what she had criticized herself. I mean, you do see some, political maneuvering where you see, for instance, Senator Jeff Sessions, a Southerner, a Republican from Alabama, bashed Thurgood Marshall, the Supreme Court justice, the civil rights icon, for being a judicial activist, and tried to tar Elena Kagan with that supposed activism because she had once clerked for Marshall and had, obviously admired him and had said many positive things about him over the years. So here we are in 2010, and a Southern white Republican is deriding really one of the great civil rights heroes of this nation. He obviously didn't think he would derail the nomination by raising this point, by going after a fellow who's been hailed as a hero in American history, but yet, you know, he thought there was a political gain, at least for him in Alabama.
Well, let's talk about that. I mean, one of the worrisome things, it seems to me, it was Kagan's response to that line of questioning. And I'm with you. Tarring with the association with Thurgood Marshall is kind of like, you know, laurels on your shoulders. She said, however, she promised you won't be getting another Thurgood Marshall. Worrying?
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, everybody gets up there and says, I'm going to be modest. I'm going to be humble. I'm going to approach the law with a degree of humiliation, you know, humbleness. And, you know, that's what it's a script you have to read. I mean, I always think back to 2005 when John Roberts, now the Chief Justice, came up for his nomination hearings, and he said, oh shucks, us justices, us judges, we don't really do much. We're just like umpires in baseball games. We just call the balls and strikes, and that's really not so hard. You know what a ball is, you know what a strike is, and you know the next day, you know, Joe Biden, bless him, as Joe Biden would say, was on the committee then, and he said, you know, with all due respect, Judge Roberts, that's not what you do. You get to set the strike zone. You get to determine the strike zone. There are a lot of parts of the Constitution where the original founders did not really tell us what the strike zone was. And he kind of blew him out of the water on that point. But by and large, you know, this is what everybody has to say now, which makes these hearings kind of pointless and a bit on the sad side.
Well, I mean, I'm with you. We did learn a few things. I think Senator Graham seems to think that Hanukkah is on the same day as Christmas. Coburn is...
Some years it is.
Coburn seems to think that, you know, there's no precedent that should be overturned, except perhaps Roe versus Wade. The Alliance for Justice put out an interesting review of Kagan's record on what they're referring to as the corporate court. Just in the last 30 seconds, the attention always goes to the social issues. Did we learn anything about where she stands on decisions like, well, the Exxon case that let so many of those claims by Valdez victims get slashed?
Well, this is the issue with her. As you know, she has never been a judge, so she's never had to rule on anything. So all the, you know, everything you know about her from her writings that she did in the Clinton years, often it was being done in a different context. They might have reflected her own internal beliefs. They might have not. My best guess is, from talking to people who know her and from just, you know, watching her and understanding a little bit of the world in which she's lived in, that she is pretty much a conventional liberal who will act like a conventional liberal and sometimes want to be a little more conservative and sometimes will be willing to go out on a limb and be a little more crusader-ish. She's not going to come in and be John Paul Stevens, but then again, when he started on the highest bench, John Paul Stevens was not John Paul Stevens.
Fair enough. David Korn, thanks so much. The Washington Bureau Chief of MotherJones. He's been following the hearings, and he will be all week. You can find more through the links at our website, GRITtv.org.